For AZPM, I'm Leslie Tolbert, Regents Professor Emerita in Neuroscience at the University of Arizona, and this is Arizona Science. Today we'll talk with Roberta Diaz-Brinton, Professor in Pharmacology and Neurology, and Founding Director of UA's Center for Innovation in Brain Science. Robbie's a leading expert in the neuroscience of brain aging, and we thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Leslie.
So tell us what you're doing with Alzheimer's disease. How do you begin to study the causes, the underpinnings of Alzheimer's disease?
The way that I came to study Alzheimer's disease, because here at the University of Arizona, I was very interested in the mechanisms. What are the processes by which the brain encodes information, learns, and remembers that information? I finished my PhD, my doctorate degree here at the University of Arizona, and went to Rockefeller University in Manhattan. And I had the good fortune of meeting a woman with Alzheimer's disease. And I would spend a fair amount of time walking and listening to her stories of being an Adlerian psychologist. And we would spend hours together. And one evening, I took her back, escorted her back to her room at the Rockefeller Hospital and bid her good night and closed the door. And I waited 30 seconds. And I knocked on the door and entered. And I asked, "Dr. Ansbacher, do you remember me?" And she was so kind. She said, "I'm so sorry. Should I?" And what she taught me in that moment was that it wasn't that she didn't remember me, it's that she never encoded me.
That's a wonderful way to put it. So how do you study that? How do you use that piece of information?
So then when I started my own laboratory, I began to study the role of estrogen in the learning and memory processes. And the reason was we knew that women who undergo the menopause can begin to experience cognitive changes in cognitive function. And we didn't really appreciate way back then, but we're quite aware of it now, is that 2/3 of all persons with Alzheimer's disease are women.
So what does that tell you about differences between male and female brains? Or conversely, what do you need to know about differences between the sexes to understand what's going on in Alzheimer's?
We understood at the time women are undergoing a midlife transition, and it's that menopausal transition that we have, in our research, have understood that transition state is a restructuring, a remodeling of the brain. Menopause is like puberty. It's a remodeling project on the existing brain structure.
So if men don't have estrogen, how do their brains work?
Well, actually, it turns out that men have lots of estrogen in their brains. They convert testosterone to estrogen. And testosterone can also regulate these functions as well.
And does that conversion change with age in men?
Yes, it does. And one of the recent findings that we have is that, regrettably, men who are on therapies for prostate cancer can have an increased risk of developing Alzheimer's disease because that testosterone antagonist, that it actually inhibits the ability of the brain to generate testosterone and other organs, the testes as well. And that reduces the brain's ability to sustain health and to sustain cognitive function in the male.
Well, thank you very much, Robbie. This is so exciting, and I have to say we all wish you not just luck, but speed in your research. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Roberta Brinton is an international expert in the neuroscience of aging. You can listen to this and all Arizona Science conversations at azpm.org/Arizona Science. I'm Leslie Tolbert.